Casper, the friendly ghost, the friendliest ghost you know. Something, 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 blah, blah, blah. But friendly ghost. The point is, he's a really nice guy. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Oktoberfest here on Thumb Together. We are talking about all the scary Halloween-y movies that have made an impact on this guy right here. And we are still talking about movies from my childhood. Today's feature is Casper. The Casper movie came out in 1995, and I think it came out because it was sort of riding the wave of the Flintstones movie. When the Flintstones movie hit in May 94, it was kind of this big deal. Everybody was like, holy cow, they actually made a live-action Flintstones. And even though the movie was, a whole other story itself, the fact that they made it look exactly like the Flintstones, and it made a lot of money too, that was wowing a lot of people in Hollywood. So suddenly, old cartoons getting greenlit left, right, and center. That's how Hollywood seems to work, right? They really are just a tidal wave of fads. Anyway, with Flintstones pulling in so much coin, somebody somewhere thought, hey, you know what was a popular cartoon? Casper the Friendly Ghost. So they took that concept, made a live-action film out of it. Next year, there you go. There's Casper. Now, I remember being really excited to watch Casper, the movie, even though I didn't really watch the cartoon all that much. I had seen it maybe 2-3 times in my entire life. But the movie, I remember, just captivated me, and it was all the rage. Everybody was talking about it. ILM was sort of the star of the show. They were working on the effects for the ghosts, and they were sort of fresh off Jurassic Park. Everybody was loving ILM because of what they did with Jurassic Park. And I believe most of the same team went on to work on the ghosts for Casper. And there was a lot of hype around the movie, and that hype was well-founded because guess what? I watched Casper like 3 months ago. Okay, it was on TV, and I was like, oh, cool, Casper. I haven't seen this in like 20 years. And the first thing I noticed was, holy crap, those ghosts still look excellent. The CGI looks perfect in Casper. It's insane. Something about, just them being these cartoony, translucent, white, vaporous forms floating through the air, talking and making pop culture references, that seems to fit perfectly well with the kind of CGI that existed back in the day, back in 1995. So it aged wonderfully. I would watch this movie way too much as a kid, and I remember really, really digging the fact that they didn't try to make this some cutesy, cheesy, triple G rated feature, even though it was about a big, wide-eyed ghost who just wants to make friends and hug people. They really went out of their way to try to tell a mature story. Whether or not you think they succeeded is entirely dictated by your own taste in movies and story, but I thought it was kind of greatly written at the end of everything. The plot of the Casper movie is more complicated than you'd think it might be, but in a nutshell, this very greedy woman named Kerrigan Crittenden, played by Catherine Moriarty, inherits a mansion called Whipstaff Manor from her deceased father. She's greedy, she's money hungry, whatever, so she goes to this mansion thinking, alright, I'm gonna sell this big property and make lots of bucks. The only problem is, the mansion is haunted by Casper and his 3 uncles. Casper's not a big deal, because Casper's a nice guy and he'll let anything slide, but his 3 uncles are really vicious, mean ghosts, and they scare anybody who tries to go into the mansion. So one night, Kerrigan sees an ad on TV for a man named Dr. Harvey, named after Harvey Comics, where Casper originated in the first place. And Dr. Harvey is a paranormal psychiatrist. He is basically a shrink for ghosts. So she hires him to go work on the ghosts in the house, work his magic on them until they've been psychologically cured, they have no need to haunt the mansion anymore, and they can leave. So Dr. Harvey moves into the mansion, accompanied by his teenage daughter, Kat, played by Christina Ricci. And we find out that the reason Dr. Harvey does this to begin with, the reason he is a paranormal psychiatrist, is because his wife died very suddenly about a decade ago. So he has been searching for ghosts all over the world in the hopes that one of them might be able to connect him to his dead wife, and he might be able to speak to her and say goodbye because he never got a chance to. Naturally, they move into the house and they encounter all the ghosts that live within. Dr. Harvey tries to work his therapy magic on the ghostly trio, but they are just too busy having fun at his own expense, scaring him, taunting him, making his life miserable. Meanwhile, Kat befriends Casper, and hilarity ensues from there. Like I said, the plot's more complicated than you would think a movie called Casper would have, but there's still more meat on this juicy steak because they did some great things with the relationship dynamic between Casper and Kat. things that you wouldn't expect a children's movie to tackle. Because guess what, guys? Plain and simple, Casper is a dead little boy. He is clearly a child and clearly a ghost, which means at some point in the past, a little boy died. Yeah, that's something I bet you didn't think about when you were watching the cartoon back in the day. So as he's hanging out with Kat and they're developing their friendship, they have this great little rapport where she starts to ask him very heavy questions that you just don't hear in kids' movies, including what's it like to die and how did you die? And for anybody who is, a fan of the old Casper cartoon or the old Casper comics, it's kind of neat to see the origin story of this character. You never expect it. You learn exactly how and when Casper passed away. You even learn his full name, Casper McFadden. And, minor spoilers for the end of this very old movie, there's a moment where some magic takes place, and for a brief point in time, you get to see what Casper looked like as a living flesh and blood boy. At some point when they were making this film and they, hired some writers, they said, look, we want you to write a Casper movie. These writers had the brilliant idea to sit back and say, okay, guys, you know what? Let's make this movie about coping with death. Whether it's coping with the death of a loved one, or, in the case of Casper, coping with your own death. That is one of the coolest things I could ever imagine writers saying in the writer's room of a kid's movie. That is like some Pixar level shit, man. Now, the script isn't poignant from front to back. I mean, all the stuff with Casper's uncles is very cheesy and lame and just, a lot of fart jokes and horrible, horrible puns. I don't think any lines of dialogue that come out of the Ghostly Trio's mouth is ever not a pun. So the movie's not perfect, but for a kid's film, it tackles some great subjects. And you know what? If I ever had to get a kid of mine into movies one day, I would show them Casper. I would show them a movie about coping with death, because guess what? At some point in their lives, that kid is going to have to cope with death too. The movie's also set in October in New England, so the whole autumn Halloween atmosphere is just rife all throughout. If you love Halloween-y looking movies, you're going to have a great time. There was a sequel to Casper, and I got very excited. However, it was a direct-to-VHS sequel, so you can guess how well it turned out. It's called Casper's Spirited Beginning, and it's a prequel, in fact, about how Casper initially met up with his quasi-ghostly uncles. The villain is a big, green, scary ghost who's voiced by James Earl Jones, but that is literally the only cool thing about this movie. Stay as far away from Casper, A Spirited Beginning as you possibly can. There was also Casper Meets Wendy and Casper's Haunted Christmas, but A Spirited Beginning threw me off the scent right away, and I stayed far, far away from those. But friendly ghosts aren't the only thing haunting these premises. Stay tuned. Oktoberfest, we'll be back soon with another wonderful Halloween-y movie. I'll see you next time. Until then, adios.